demo of Skybox Firewall Assurance. Today we have a product that will enable customers to do access compliance, optimization and cleanup, as well as change tracking. As you can see here, we have our main firewall. We collect data from a variety of different firewalls and different sources. And once we import the data, we can then do a lot of different things to a firewall. The first being policy compliance. We break it up into two areas: access compliance and rule compliance. Access compliance is how we manage policies across the different interfaces of a firewall. We would actually look at a NIST policy or a PCI policy that are out of the box. The rule compliance is some standard best practices on rules, like any in 3 fields, risky ports, too many ports. And these things are checked based on that configuration that we've imported. The other area that we look at is optimization and cleanup. Optimization and cleanup is also done in 2 ways. We get shadowed and redundant rules directly from the file import, or we will read syslog data to capture rule usage, and we analyze that data for things like unused rules, used rules, objects contained in our unused, as well as unused objects and used objects. The third area we look at is change tracking. And change tracking is capturing the daily changes that are being made and the before and after of that change. We can also look at objects that are changed and what rules are affected in those changes. So getting back to the demo, we can go here to our main firewall and look at these different areas. We have policy compliance, and like I said, policy compliance is split into access and rule compliance. We can look at what rules are violating that access compliance, and I can see here that rule number 3 has 21 violations. The violations are here below, and we can see all of the different violations and click on one to see what is causing me that violation. I would get the NIST description. I will get the description based on my network, so I can see here that this network is in violation and these ports are part of that violation. I can then look at the access results and see the network. I can see what the violations are, and here I can then mark things as exceptions as needed if they are exceptions. I can also time exceptions. I can make my own comments. I can either do an exception at the entire network level or at the individual port levels. I can also show the access route, and I will see here as well multiple access routes if there are any, so that if I needed to remove this access and remove the violation completely, I know that I have to remove the access in rule number 3 and in rule number 2. The other area that we can look at in policy compliance is the rule policy. And you can see here I can either have both in the same screen, or if I just want one, I can do that as well. This will give me which rules have any in a service or too many IPs or risky ports. And these policies are also configurable as well, just like the NIST or the PCI policy are as well. Here I can see what the rule is. I can see the details of that rule and all of the specifics of that rule, and I can see here clearly that it's any in a service. So this gives me the ability to clean up bad rules or misinterpreted rules or mismanaged rules. The next area we can look at is the optimization and cleanup. And so if I go back up here to optimization and cleanup, I'll see that I have rule usage data, used, unused rules. I have also object usage. I can see all the different objects that are being used and their hit counts. In the rule usage, I also will see hit counts. I will also, if I click on a rule itself, if I want to see which objects are used or unused, I can quickly see that partner 2 is not used, so I can delete that. I can take a look at a review of all of my hit counts and also see what needs to be moved around. Obviously, this rule is being used much more than any other rule, so maybe it should be moved up, and other rules should be moved down in the stack. And obviously, I can eliminate unused rules. In the shadowed and redundant rules section, I can quickly find which rules are redundant or shadowed and remove those as well. In the case here, I can see that Rule 14 is being shadowed by Rule number 2, so Rule 2 can be removed. If I need to further explain why, I can quickly see that here's my source, and in this rule there's an any, which is more encompassing than this rule, and thus this rule can be removed. The same thing goes for redundant rules, and I believe I have one here. You can see that this rule number 1 is already encompassed by rule number 3, so it's likely this rule can be removed as well, unless there's some specific reason why you have a more specific rule above another one. But usually these are created because the end user doesn't know that another rule exists, so they start to get more and more redundant rules on a firewall. And that's how you start to build up, you know, a lot of rules on your firewall. The last area that we look at is the area of change tracking. And change tracking, like I said, will keep track of all of the changes on a daily basis as far back as you want. You can change the tracking period so you can view a different tracking period. You can also create reports, export to CSV all of the data. And when you look at change tracking, you'll see all the different changes, what's got changed, and in the cases of objects that are changed, the rules that are affected by those object changes. So this is good for meeting requirements such as SOX or COBIT or even PCI on handling change tracking and maintaining a change log. The other aspects, another thing that we include with Firewall Assurance is the idea of Access Analyzer. An Access Analyzer gives you the ability to query any firewall that you have in your firewall access tree and look for specifics about that firewall. So if I wanted to check between the internal interface and the DMZ interface of that firewall and see if any FTP access was available, I could quickly do that using Access Analyzer. And quickly see my results and see that there's 3 networks that have FTP access. I can click on any one of them and it will give me the ACLs that are giving me that access. So in the case of me having to go out and remove certain access on the network, I can quickly find out which firewalls have that access and remove it from these ACLs. Or if someone's complaining and needs this type of access, I can also say, give me the blocked destinations and look at the networks that have it blocked, and quickly I know which rules I need to modify to give that type of access. So in either case, I can see accessible or inaccessible destinations. For reporting, there are a variety of reports that we have with Skybox Firewall Assurance. These are just some of the out-of-the-box reports. Reports can be generated in a variety of formats like PDF, HTML, or rich text format, as well as having the ability to use our task management system to export data into CSV files for your own manipulation. You can email to different recipients. You can decide on specific scope of firewalls, and you can create as many of these different types of reports and automatically generate them and email them to the appropriate people. You can quickly see a report. If I open it, I can see that it is a PDF report, and everything is hyperlinked, telling me what the problems are and what needs to be fixed. That's Skybox Firewall Assurance.